Hey, folks, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into the economic dumpster fire that is the US economy, and guess what? Your government and its cronies are holding the matches. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Boss Economics World, the only place on the internet where we rip the mask off the economic circus and expose the clowns running the show. I'm your host, the guy who's been screaming into the void since 2008, and today, oh boy, do we have a doozy for you. We're talking tariffs, interest rates, and a certain former president who thinks he's an economist now. Spoiler alert, he's not. But neither are the suits at the Federal Reserve, apparently, because they're all driving this economy straight into a ditch. So, grab your popcorn, folks, because today we're breaking down the latest economic drama, courtesy of Donald Trump's Truth Social rants, the Fed's stubborn refusal to cut rates, and a government that's more interested in political theater than fixing the mess they've created. Let's dive in, point by point, surface to core, and expose the economic idiocy that's got us all on the brink of a recession, again. First up, let's talk about the man, the myth, the economic mastermind, Donald J. Trump. This week, our former president took to Truth Social to drop some hot economic wisdom. According to Trump, the Federal Reserve should cut rates because, apparently, his tariffs are about to ease their way into the economy. Oh, and he's calling April 2nd, 2025, Liberation Day in America. Liberation from what, exactly? Common sense. Economic stability. A functioning trade system. Here's the deal, folks, Trump's obsession with tariffs is like a kid playing with a flamethrower in a room full of dynamite. Tariffs sound great on the campaign trail, protect American jobs. Stick it to China. But in reality, they're attacks on American consumers and businesses. Don't believe me? Let's look at the data. According to a 2023 study by the American Action Forum, Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods alone cost U.S. consumers and businesses over $195 billion since 2018. And guess what? Those costs don't just disappear, they get passed on to you, the average Joe, in the form of higher prices. Now, Trump's out here saying the Fed needs to cut rates to offset the damage his tariffs are causing. Translation, hey, I'm gonna punch the economy in the face, but don't worry, the Fed will kiss it better. This is peak economic irresponsibility, folks. Tariffs are inflationary, they drive up costs. Cutting interest rates, on the other hand, is supposed to stimulate the economy by making borrowing cheaper. So, Trump's basically saying, let's pour gasoline on the fire, but hey, maybe throw some water on it too. But here's the kicker, the Fed didn't listen. On Wednesday, March 19, 2025, the Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC, decided to keep the federal funds rate steady at a range of 4.25% to 4.5%. That's the second meeting in a row with no change, folks. And while Trump's out here screaming for rate cuts, the Fed's sitting there like, nah, we're good. Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't the Fed supposed to help the economy? Oh, sweet summer child, let me take you deeper into this mess. Because what we're seeing here isn't just a Trump tantrum or a Fed facepalm, it's a symptom of a much bigger, much uglier problem. Let's zoom out and talk about why the Fed is refusing to cut rates, even as Trump, and a lot of regular people, are begging for relief. The Fed's primary job, at least in theory, is to keep inflation in check while maximizing employment. But here's the problem, inflation is still a beast, and the Fed's terrified of letting it loose again. As of February 2025, the Consumer Price Index, CPI, was still hovering around 3.8% year-over-year, according to the latest Bureau of Labor Statistics data. That's down from the 9.1% peak we saw in June 2022, but it's still well above the Fed's sacred 2% target. And don't forget, folks, those CPI numbers. They're cooked. The government loves to fiddle with the formula to make inflation look lower than it really is. Shadow Stats, an independent economic data provider, estimates that real inflation, using the same methodology as in the 1980s, is closer to 10%. 10%, folks. That means your grocery bill, your rent, your car payment, they're all getting crushed, and the Fed's sitting there twiddling its thumbs. Now, here's where it gets juicy. The Fed's decision to keep rates at 4.25% to 4.5% isn't just about fighting inflation, it's about trying to avoid a full-blown economic meltdown. See, high interest rates make borrowing more expensive, which slows down spending and investment. That's supposed to cool off inflation, but it also risks tipping the economy into a recession. And guess what? We're already seeing the cracks. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, U.S. GDP growth slowed to a measly 1.1% annualized rate in Q4 2024, down from 3.1% in Q3. Unemployment is creeping up too, hitting 4.3% in February 2025, up from 3.7% a year ago. Manufacturing activity? In the toilet. The Institute for Supply Management's manufacturing PMI has been in contraction territory, below 50, for 6 straight months. And don't even get me started on the housing market. Mortgage rates are still above 7%, and home sales are at their lowest level since 1995, per the National Association of Realtors. So, let's recap. The Fed's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Cut rates, and inflation could spiral out of control again. Keep rates high, and the economy could tank into a recession, or worse, stagflation, that lovely combo of stagnant growth and high inflation that makes the 1970s look like a picnic. But here's the real question, folks, why are we even in this mess? Spoiler alert, it's not just Trump's tariffs or the Fed's tightrope act. Let's go deeper, way deeper, into the core of this economic dumpster fire. Here's the ugly truth, folks, the US economy is a house of cards, and it's been that way for decades. Trump's tariffs and the Fed's rate decisions. They're just the latest clowns in a long line of economic circus acts. The real problem is government mismanagement, reckless spending, and a central bank that's more interested in bailing out Wall Street than helping Main Street. Let's start with the elephant in the room, government debt. As of March 2025, the U.S. national debt stands at a jaw-dropping $35.7 trillion, according to the U.S. Treasury Department. That's 123% of GDP, folks, higher than at any point since World War II. And it's not slowing down. The Congressional Budget Office projects that annual budget deficits will average $2 trillion per year for the next decade. $2 trillion, every single year. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but debt's been high before, right? Sure, but here's the difference, back in the day, we could borrow at dirt cheap rates. Not anymore. With interest rates at 4.25% to 4.5%, the cost of servicing that debt is exploding. In fiscal year 2024, the U.S. spent $892 billion just on interest payments, per the Treasury. That's more than we spent on defense, folks. And if rates stay high, or go higher, that number could hit $1 trillion by 2026. But wait, there's more. Remember all that stimulus money the government handed out during the pandemic? Trillions of dollars, folks, printed out of thin air by the Fed and shoveled into the economy. That's why inflation took off like a rocket in 2021 and 2022. And now, the Fed's trying to clean up the mess by jacking up rates, but it's too little, too late. The damage is done. And let's not forget the trade wars. Trump's tariffs might be the loudest example, but this isn't just a Trump problem. The Biden administration has kept most of those tariffs in place, and even added new ones, like the 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles announced in May 2024. Protectionism sounds great on paper, but in practice, it's a disaster. Just look at the semiconductor industry. U.S. chipmakers are getting crushed by higher input costs, and consumers are paying more for everything from phones to cars. So, here's the big picture, folks, decades of bad policy, reckless spending, money printing, and trade wars, have left the U.S. economy on life support. And now, with Trump screaming for rate cuts and the Fed refusing to budge, we're stuck in a stalemate that's only making things worse. So, what's the endgame here, folks? Let me lay it out for you in plain English. If the Fed caves to Trump's demands and cuts rates, we're looking at a potential inflation explosion. Think 1970s-style stagflation, where prices skyrocket but the economy stalls out. If the Fed holds the line, we're looking at a recession, or worse, a full-blown financial crisis, as businesses and consumers buckle under the weight of high borrowing costs. And don't forget the wild card, the 2025 Liberation Day Trump's talking about. If he's hinting at more tariffs, more tax cuts, or more economic meddling, then buckle up, folks, because this roller coaster's about to go off the rails. Here's my advice, for what it's worth, if you're an average Joe, start saving, cut your debt, and maybe think about investing in real assets like gold or commodities, because the dollar's purchasing power is going down the drain. If you're a finance pro, well, you already know the game's rigged. Hedge your bets, and don't trust the clowns in Washington to save you. Folks, the US economy is a mess, and it's not because of some mysterious business cycle or global headwinds. It's because of the clowns running the show, politicians who care more about votes than results, and central bankers who care more about Wall Street than Main Street. Trump's tariffs, the Fed's rate hikes, the government's debt binge, they're all symptoms of a deeper disease, a system that's broken, rotten to the core, and in desperate need of a wake-up call. So, what do you think, folks? Are we headed for a recession, stagflation, or something even worse? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to smash that like button if you're as fed up with this economic circus as I am. Until next time, this is Boss Economics World, signing off. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, the government's not here to help you, it's here to help itself. See you in the economic apocalypse, folks.